Subject to is, if you don't know, it's a creative financing strategy, and it's an act of basically assuming a mortgage, but you're not doing it in the typical sense of assumption, right? You're taking over the property. You're taking ownership, actually. You're going to be on the deed, and we recommend that you do it in your LLC or a trust, and then the loan, of course, is still in someone else's name. Now, this is a strategy that you can implement whether you have money or not. It really doesn't matter, because there's a number of different things that you can do in a subject to, right? You can wholesale subject tos. You can partner with people on subject tos. You can do them yourself. You can do subject tos with equity or with no equity, whether there's a lot of equity or there's a little bit of equity. There is literally I don't want to say an infinite number of ways that you can go, but there are a lot of ways that you can go about it. And I kind of want to go over, I want to spend some time with you. And again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat so I can get to them, because I want this to be informative, and I want you to be able to, take action. Literally take action once you get off this phone call, off this live, So let's just kind of dig right into it. Let me go over here. Let me share my screen with you a little bit. All right. So here we are. Subject to. So subject to is a strategy to acquire control of a property. And you don't need any of your own documents, right? And again, acquiring or taking control of the property means your name, your company's name rather. We would never recommend that you do these things in your personal name. That is never a good way to go. And we're going to talk about how agents fit into this and everything, because there is a tremendous opportunity for agents and for investors to work with agents through this. I didn't get into that right away, so pardon me, but let's just stick to the script here for a second. So if you get, once you get a deal in hand, you're going to put your business name or your trust on there. That's something that you control or your partnership controls, and it's yours. The house is yours. Your name is on the deed, and the loan is in someone else's name. And you don't need any documents to do it. So you have to, even with a hard money loan, they want to see your taxes or your bank statements. They want you to have some kind of credit. Most of them want some kind of credit. Some of them want you to have a 680. Some of them want you to have at least a 620. Some of them at certain times will even say a 580, which is fine. But the point is, you have to go through all the rigmarole, right? You've got to, a lot of times, show proof of funds to a lender. But even in this situation, sometimes you're going to have to show proof of funds. It depends on the sophistication of the seller, right? But you don't need anything, You get the deed, but the mortgage stays in the seller's name. And these are documents that you would typically need to show to a lender in order for you to get a loan. And you don't need that. Why don't you need that? Well, you're not going through a typical lending process. In essence, the current homeowner becomes your bank. Okay? And there is a bit of an education process 9.9 times out of 10. There's a bit of an education process that goes with this. But the reason you don't need these documents is because you're not going to a traditional bank. You're not going to a commercial lender or a hard money lender. You're not doing any of that, right? You are going to this homeowner. You're identifying whatever their pain point is, because if someone's going to do this deal, there's always a pain point, right? There's always a point of pain, a point of contention that someone is going to have, and we want to know what that is, right? So it could be a distress situation, whether it's physically, financially, and I say physically to the property, physical to the property, but it could be physical to the person as well. A lot of times you work with older people, that are trying to downsize, or not even downsize, just get out of the house because they don't want to cut the grass and clean the gutters and do all the rigmarole that comes with, taking care of a house. Once you get up in age, a lot of people just don't want to do that anymore. Just literally doesn't make any sense for them. Maybe physically they just can't do it anymore. There's just a lot of different things that go with that. And then I got to throw this little caveat in there. There is, the reverse mortgages that are out there, right? And a lot of people have been asking lately, listen, can we do subject to with a reverse mortgage? Well, I mean, technically yes, but not really. The circumstances surrounding that can be a little difficult sometimes. So you gotta be careful. Really, you have to be careful because anything can actually happen when you're dealing with the reverse mortgage lenders. They're typically very in tune to what their homeowners are doing with their property. They check on them quite regularly because they want to see if they passed or, who's there, if they're living there, if they've moved on to, something else, meaning out of that particular property. They want to know. So they kind of stay on that. So utilizing those are kind of different. They're very, very different. And you should really know what you're doing if you're going to look into getting something like that, because equity plays a big, big part in that. And, you really have to know what you're doing. How much equity is there? Is there any equity there? Because every one of those loans are different. I mean, they're all different. So you have to be really, 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 really careful when you're dealing with those kind of situations, right? So, but we're not going to dig into that right now because that kind of doesn't even make sense, because I want to keep this, I don't want to say superficial, but I want to keep it on a level where you can understand exactly what's going on, right? So in essence, a subject to is taking over a property. Your name is going to be on the deed. It's yours for all intents and purposes. And there are going to, the loan will stay in that person's name, right? So what kind of documents are going to be needed to do this? And then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, but I absolutely want to give you, the specifics of what's going on and what's absolutely needed, right? So here are the documents, and these aren't all the documents. Okay, there are other documents that are going to be involved, but they come from the lender, right? Or from your attorney or your title company. Most of those things are going to come through there. So I want to point out, how the things that you're going to need when you are speaking to that person, so you can gather all the documentation that's going to be necessary for you to find success in this particular process, right? So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is, I don't want to do that. This third-party authorization to release information. That's the first thing we're going to look at, right? I mean, I don't want to say it's the first, and there's really all of this is just one package that we present when we're having things signed or when the agent is having things signed, because it just doesn't, it matters who's doing what. We like to kind of do those things. We don't like to relinquish a lot of that to other people for a lot of different reasons. One, we want to make sure these things are explained properly. It's extremely important that these things are explained properly and effectively to the seller, right? We don't want them to have any any questions about what they're doing. We want them to know what they're doing. There's no reason to lie. There's no reason to be deceptive. There's no reason to rush your way into an opportunity, as so many people do, which is why we have a lot of issues out there. So I want to, reiterate that. So a third-party authorization to release information allows you to gather information, if necessary, from the lender, from any party associated with this particular deal, right? Now, the next thing that we're going to focus on is, of course, the purchase and sale agreement. The purchase and sale agreement is important. Now, there are different PSAs, purchase and sale agreements out there, and you do want to know what you're doing. You do want to know what it says in there. It's important to know what is being said inside your purchase and sale agreement, because a basic blank purchase and sale agreement may not have everything that you're going to need to have in it. Like, you want to make sure that, this is a fully assignable contract. That should be in all your contracts anyway. It should be in all your contracts. So, there are people that have forms, or I should say purchase and sale agreements that are specific to a subject to, and there are others that, that have these blanket ones. And I got to tell you, whatever documentation that they're using in your state, it's not really good enough. You got to have addendums to that. If you're going to be dealing with an agent, for instance, a lot of times they really want to use their state contracts, which is fine. You just have to have all the affidavits and put things in that particular contract that are going to, let everybody know, hey, this contract is fully assignable, meaning if you wanted to wholesale that thing off, you can. That's one of your exit strategies. Or if you're going to sell it to another one of your companies or a partnership, but it went under contract here, but it's going to close over here. Michael, what are you saying here? Is this about being an assigner or assignee, an assignment form? It doesn't have to be an assignment form per se. Good question. It literally just needs to be a line item on the contract that says this contract is fully assignable. That's all it really has to say. There's some other verbiage as you start to work with different kind of situations that you want in there, but we're going to keep this simple. And your attorney or title company, depending on where you are, is going to know once you talk to them and say, hey, we're doing this subject to, what do we need in our documents to be safe in this state, all right? Because we know that state law is different from place to place. Can you do this everywhere? Yes, you can. Can you do it with VA loans? Yes, you can. Are there objections that are going to pop up? People saying, hey, listen, I'm trying to buy another house and I can't buy one, my lender said, until I sell this house. Can you object to that? Absolutely. You have to look at the kind of loan they have, because there are loans that specifically state how to do a subject to deal inside their documents, inside the documents that they signed when they initially bought the house. So these things are already there. It's not a matter of it being impossible to do. It's a matter of people understanding what they can do or how to do it. And sometimes that requires, the closing attorney to have a conversation with the finance company and so on and so forth. A really easy thing to overcome, but we'll talk about those things a little bit later. Okay. Now going back, your purchase and sale agreement is an important thing to have. Obviously, you want to make sure you have that. I like to have seller disclosures, right? Defects in the property. When we go look at a property, we are always looking for some kind of physical defects. It's one of the things we do. I mean, when you're looking at a particular opportunity, there are many exit strategies, right? There's not just one. You might be looking at this property. It might have come in as a wholesale lead, but as you gather more information, you realize for one reason or another, this isn't going to work. Generally that has to do with how much money is in the deal, or rather not in the deal, how much equity is or isn't there. That will switch up how you are coming at it. Now, if you have a high equity deal, can you still do a subject to? Absolutely. There's an infinite number of ways for you to work it out. And, in terms of your exit strategy or how you put it together, you take over the loan, you can agree on a price above, of course, the loan amount, depending on the situation. And you can have a situation set up where not only are you paying that mortgage, but you're paying interest on the equity because technically they're your bank and they're going to be in second position, but that's the case, right? They are going to have basically a second loan if they want to get some of their interest. That's what you want to do. You want to be in control of the property. You want to be in control of where the money goes. You don't want to be sending that check to the person and hope that they pay, because they might not want to pay. They might have something that comes up in their life that you just never know. So you want to make sure you have that control. But the disclosure, the seller disclosure that points out the defects in the property, is something that when we go and look at a property, we say, oh, it needs paint, or there's water damage on the bathroom floor. The general things that we do. We put that in there as part of the disclosures. Hey, these are the things that are wrong with the property. It could be termite damage. It could be any number of things, right? So we want to make sure that that's in there as well. Because again, if it's not, it really doesn't matter because you're going to say you're taking it as is and so on and so forth. But I like to make sure those things are in there, me personally, because to me, it absolutely matters. I want everything to be disclosed. The next is acknowledgement of the due on sale clause. The due on sale clause is always there. And so this is one thing that people ask about constantly when it comes to these kinds of deals. Why is the bank going to do this? Aren't they going to exercise their due on sale clause? They could exercise their due on sale clause. It depends on the situation, right? So you're going to, the bank generally doesn't care as long as they're getting paid. They're going to stay out of the way. But you're going to acknowledge with the seller that, hey, we acknowledge that this due on sale clause does exist. And in the event that we have to go ahead and refinance it or sell it, we'll do that, right? But you want it to be disclosed. There are a number of ways that you can deal with it. But if you're making your payments, you're not going to ever have any issues, ever, right? Paul, would you suggest having a person who does home inspections to be with us to specify the property defects? You know what? That's a very good question. And yes, you can do that, right? Over time, you're going to be able to discern what's going on with the property. In the beginning, yeah, I mean, if you've got a friend and it's not going to cost you $400 to get it done, why not, right? And I'm not saying avoid doing that because of the $200, $300, $400, $500 that costs. Not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, if you don't have it, it's an expense that you don't necessarily want to incur, right? Because you still got earnest money. There's a bunch of money that has to come up. Do you want it? Depends on the deal. I mean, if you're looking at a property and this thing needs a lot of work, a ton of work, hey, we look at all the foundation. We look at the roof. We look at the HVAC systems. We look at the water heater. We look at the furnaces. We look at everything. But we're looking at it with, 20 years of experience, right? Everybody doesn't have 20 years of experience to be able to look at a roof and say, hey, it looks worn, right? I mean, how do you know until you've done it? So yeah, at times it may be very important to have. And if you have someone on your team already, then that's great. That's one of the things that we talk about in the training, it's building your success team, right? And having someone like that, whether it's a contractor or an inspector, having one of those people on your team is always going to be important, especially when you're just starting out, so you know what to look at. I mean, it's really difficult if you don't know what to look at. I can sit here and talk to you till I'm blue in the face about this, the windows, the roof, the flooring, the cabinets. Some things are obvious. Some things are not so obvious. Some things are just not obvious. And I got to tell you, I don't like going underneath houses. It's not my thing, right? I don't want to do it. I'm here in Georgia, and I simply don't want to do it. We had some properties a little, west Texas, and we did some things in Arizona, and, I didn't see a lot of crawl spaces over there, right? But, you'll go into the back shed or something, and there'll be snakes in there. I'm not playing with that, man. I'm hiring the people that do that to do that. It's not my thing. I'm not going to do it. So if I need to get those things, I'm going to get them from the people that do them. But going back to where we were, the due on sale clause, it's just an acknowledgement that that it's there because you want to point this out to them so that you can alleviate any pressure or fear that they may have about that being exercised on their behalf, right? Or in the negative, but there's ways to do that. All right, and then the next one we have there is the affidavit of liens. Why would we want to have that in there? Because we're going to do a title search anyway. The reason that we want to have it in there is we want them to disclose all these things to us. Yes, we're going to see if there's any liens that pop up on the house or even the person for that matter when we do the title search. And regardless of what pops up, we're getting a title policy anyway, right? Because remember, any liens are going to be attached to the property. It's not attached to the loan. It's attached to the property. It's attached to the person, but they have to go then and attach it to the property, right? So if we know that there are liens in place, we can negotiate from that perspective. But we have them sign an affidavit of liens for just pure disclosure purposes. We want them to be as honest with us as we are going to be with them, period. So if they are not being honest, again, it's going to show up on the title search, and then we will deal with it from that perspective. How do you deal with that? Well, there's plenty of negotiation space for how you're going to deal with liens that pop up in people's names. It depends on how much it is. All of this comes into play. Can you overcome those objections? 1,000% yes, absolutely. But once you find yourself in that position, you're just going to start talking. You're going to talk to the lien holder. You're going to talk to the person. You're going to talk to the lender. You're going to talk to all these people based on how their loan was structured and the laws of the state. You'll decide how you're going to move forward with those liens, right? Because you can assume that property, you can still take over the property with the liens in place. You can still do that. You just have to negotiate those things away. It's as simple as that. But again, it's vitally important that that's there. All right, affidavit of marital status. Why do we want to have an affidavit of marital status? Well, because more often than not, what happens? We get a lot of these deals from people that are, going through a divorce. They're splitting up. And we call people constantly. We're constantly talking to people. And this one person might be on the deed or popped up in the search when we skip trace them. The other person may not have popped up in that search. It doesn't mean they're not on the deed. It just means that this is the person that popped up, and this is the person we're having a conversation with. So we now have to say, hey, what's going on with this property? And is there a husband? Is there a wife? Is there someone else who's on the deed or on the loan? Who's there, right? More importantly for us, it's a matter of the deed. But we need them to disclose who's on the deed. Again, this is something that we're going to find out once we run title, right? We'll know who's on the deed. But the more information we have as soon as possible, we can start to deal with these things. We deal with spouses all the time. And I don't have to tell you, some of these conversations can be, a little extra because we had a husband and wife that were going through a divorce, or two people, I should say, that were going through a divorce, where the husband was motivated to, save his credit and get this thing. They were going, she was willing to allow it to go into foreclosure. He'd moved out of state. She moved to another part of town, and she could care less. And she wanted to get a bunch of money that really wasn't there in terms of a down payment. And we were just not, it was unreasonable, where he wanted a very small amount of money relative to what she was asking for, and he was willing to give half of what he was asking for. He was asking for 10. He was going to keep 5 and give her 5. He felt that was fair. She wanted 20 just on her side, and there wasn't enough equity in MVM. Was way over at this point. $20,000 plus just maybe 5 for him on top of the renovations that were needed to the property. Just took it over the top because it was already, close to its equity point. So we figured something out with the help of the husband. We finally got her to the table and were able to work something out. But, it took another 2 months to do that, to work that out. And that mortgage clock continues to escalate. That money is still adding up. So we needed to make sure that those things get taken care of, right? So we did that. So you want to have that in advance. It's going to help you out a great deal. It's just really important that you get as much information as possible. Notification to the lender. Now, this is something that you'll just keep for yourself. If you want to notify the lender right away, you can. There are times when you need to notify a lender, when you're negotiating maybe with them, because when you're doing these subject twos, maybe it's a pre-foreclosure and this person is behind, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, whatever the case, and you don't necessarily want to pay this, huge amount of money. It could be, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 sometimes. We've seen them pretty high, depends on on the house. So we want to try to negotiate any expenses. We want to say, hey, listen, we've got 20% to put down in this particular scenario. If they owe 40,000, we have 10,000, that we can give you now. Can we work something out, kind of a forbearance kind of situation or a modification? Can we put something together to get this out of foreclosure status where we don't have to come up with the 40,000? But that's more on the negotiation side. But that notification to lender is coupled with what comes after that are the documents that are necessary for you to give to the lender, so the lender can legally, lawfully have that communication with you. And what is that second document? That second document is the limited power of attorney for this real estate transaction. That is the second document that you're going to need, right? Those two things are what you would send to them. Now, the third-party authorization, a lot of times that winds up being the limited power of attorney. It depends on how you word it, right? We use them all in one, but there are other people that have them separated, right? So we use them all in one. The third-party authorization and the limited power of attorney is one document that is the acknowledgement of that person saying, hey, they have the right to do this. They have the right to have this conversation. It's got their name, their date of birth, their social security number, along with all in a limited power of attorney structure that is then, notarized and sent off to the lender. So that just lets them know that they can talk to you. And a lot of times you're going to need to have that conversation. Now, again, as I said, there are additional disclosures that are needed in various situations that, they're going to be different things for different states, really. There are disclosures that are needed in California that aren't needed in Georgia. There are things needed in, Illinois that you don't need in Arizona, and so on and so forth. But those are documents, generally speaking, that are going to be all in the closing package that your attorney and or title company puts in place for you. Okay, does that make sense? Good. All right. Any questions so far as we move on? I want to make sure that we're you're getting everything you need to get, because we're gonna go now into where you're gonna find these deals, right? So that is kind of like the technical minutia, if you will, but it's important for you to know. I mean, it's vital. It's just as important for you to know that as it is for me to tell you, listen, go out and get an LLC set up right now. Go out right now and get an LLC. Why should you have an LLC? You don't want to put anything in your name, right? You can have land trust situations in place when you do each one of these deals, and you can do each one of these into separate land trusts as well. I would recommend that you speak to an attorney in your state. There are a lot of people that do land trusts. We do them for the ones that we utilize in the subject to spaces, but that is a great way. I mean, okay, so Paul has a question here. Paul says, so title and or lawyer would know these docs needed? Yes, sir. So I gave you the ones that you want to have in your package. Those are the documents that you want to have in your package that you make sure get signed. The other disclosures that are needed, and there's a ton of them that are going to be needed. I mean, some places require you to have lead-based paint, and just for a transfer of title, which it is what it is. But if that's something that's needed, those things are going to pop up when the attorney or title company is looking at all the documents in front of them, and they say, hey, listen, we're going to need this, or we're going to need that, and we're going to need this. Then you just go from there and you go get it. If there's an agent involved, having that disclosure, whatever the disclosure is going to be pretty simple if it's related to them. Most of them, these disclosures are basically notifications from the attorney to the seller and or buyer, or title, attorney or title company to the seller and or buyer. And those notifications are important. They're required by law in any given state. And because they're required by law, we can always count on our title companies and lawyers to make sure that they CYA in every case, right? In every case. So, but you want to know as well. So you have to get familiar with what those things are in your state. It's really, really important. Excuse me 1 second. So those things are important for you to know, right? So let's go into where you're going to find these deals. Okay. We've got pre-foreclosures, right? We've got extended listings, things that are with agent. When I say extended listings, I mean listings that have been on there for 60, 70, 90 days or longer, expired listings as well, right? So let's talk about those for just a quick second, just those three, right? Pre-foreclosures are probably one of the best places depending on market conditions. They're probably one of the best places. Okay, you got it, Paul. I'm glad I was able to answer that question for you. But again, anybody watching, if you have questions, just throw them in here. Just throw them in because I want to answer your questions. So pre-foreclosures are self-explanatory. They're properties that are going into foreclosure. They're not quite there yet, but people know they're in trouble. And now you're beginning to have this conversation with them. And let me preface this part of it with all three of these: pre-foreclosures, expired listings, and extended listings. Really with all of them. I'm not even going to just limit it to that. If, let's say, a property is worth $300,000 and they're selling it for $320,000, and they're doing that in hopes of, because they know they don't have any equity, but they want to make sure that the agent gets paid. But it hasn't been selling, it hasn't been selling. This is more of a negotiation thing, but it hasn't been selling. Might have been on there 5 months, 6 months, approaching, its expired status. If that is the case, it's now time to have a conversation with the agent, and saying, hey, how serious are these people? Or how susceptible, how open are they to having a conversation with us about, owner financing their house? Because if we get terms, we can give them their price. And these kind of situations come up all the time. It's not just a foreclosure situation. It could be their job is moving, or maybe they lost their job and they can't really afford to stay in that house anymore. I mean, there could be any number of reasons. We talked about it, whatever. But there are a ton of pre-foreclosures that are out there, and there's a lot that are coming up. If you've watched any of the stuff that I talk about, you hear me constantly talk about, get ready. The next 18 to 24 months are going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be so much opportunity out there. The reason for that is this, and let me tell you, let me be clear. Okay. Values have been going up while rates have been suppressed. They've been really, really low, right? Now we have high values and rates that are now meeting those, which means there are fewer and fewer people to buy. That will make the market plateau, which is what we're seeing now. Some areas are already coming down. Okay. We are then going to start seeing values come down. But think of the people that just bought a house a year ago, 2 years ago. These values have gone up so high, so fast over the course really of the last 3 years. But the past 5-6 years have been astronomical in terms of value. But over the past 3 years, it's been crazy the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, just absurd. So the people that are going to wind up in situations that bought properties in the last 2 years, and whatever circumstances happened in their life, and they have to sell this property, they're either going to have to come out of pocket with some money as values start to dip, or they're going to have to find a way to hold this, or they're going to have to give it back to the bank. That's where we come in, and we offer these creative financing situations. And how you negotiate these is going to be paramount in you getting the deal, because you have to remember, I can give you a script that says, hey, here's how you're going to negotiate this deal. But it's not always going to be like that, because the circumstances are always going to be different. The circumstances of the seller are going to be different. The circumstances of the loan are going to be different. The circumstances of the property are going to be different. So it's a matter of understanding where someone is, to negotiate. But I digress. We'll get into that here shortly. Pre-foreclosures, expired listings, and extended listings. Now, you can go. Let me talk about this from someone who might not have any money. Wait a second here. Paul has a question. Personal note question. Where to find deals to subject to property pre-foreclosure. Okay. All right. 69, etc. to expired. Yes. So Pre-foreclosures, you can find a pre-foreclosure list by utilizing a service, right? Those are kind of leads that you want to buy. Now, you don't have to utilize a service. You can go to your county courthouse and get a listing of those, but you're still going to have to skip trace them if you're going to call them or go door knocking, But you can get a list. You can buy a list from a lot of different places. There's a ton of places where you can buy them. You can have services, which Paul, I'll be able to share some of that stuff with you, because I know that you're in the training program, so I'll be able to share a lot of that stuff with you. But we use batch leads, right? And batch leads and batch dial. We use that to pull all our leads and do our skip tracing, and there are other services that we use, but that's one of the main ones that we utilize, where we get our lead sources from, right? That's where we get our leads from. So that helps out a great deal. There's a monthly or an annual fee. There's different levels that you can be in, and just kind of go from there. But the pre-foreclosures, I get them from there, but you can get them from your county records office. They come out every month. You can get them from other services, other list services. There are a million list services out there where you can go and buy a list of pre-foreclosures for the time frame in which you're looking. Okay, so that's a great place. Expired listings, you're going to get those from your agent. But you can also get those expired listings from those list services as well. Okay, but if pretty much everyone, I'm pretty sure everyone here knows someone that is an agent, right? They know somebody that's an agent. Reach out to them and say, hey, listen, I'm looking for these kinds of things. I'm looking for expired listings. I'm looking for agents who have extended listings. And you don't want to be represented by an agent, but you can work with an agent. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you want to keep your expenses down, right? You don't want your expenses to be too crazy high. And if you're dealing with a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, that's 6%. If we're talking about taking over a house, because we want the agents to get paid. We'll talk about how that gets done a little bit later. But if we're going to make sure these agents get paid, and it's a $300,000 house, and you've agreed to a $300,000 price, let me say it that way, 6%, that's $18,000 that you've just added to the deal, right? So you don't want to be represented by, anyone else. You don't want to be represented. You want to know what you're doing, okay? So if you know what you're doing, you're not going to be represented by an agent. That saves you 3%. In this case, it saves you $9,000. Now, if you're dealing with an extended listing, this would be an extended listing. This would be a listing that the agent who listed it knows they're having a difficult time selling it. They know that they're going to be getting to the end of the listing period, and they're going to lose this. And a lot of times the sellers get very upset with the agent for not being able to sell their property. So this is where a little bit of education comes in on your part to the agent. And listen, if you wind up in that situation, by all means, reach out to me. Whether you're in my training or not, I will help you walk your way through this, right? I will help you talk to agents, and I will help you talk to sellers, right? I want to see people succeed. So, reach out to me and we can set up a time and make that happen. Having said that, when you're talking to these agents, you're saying, listen, do you think that, and you want to talk to the listing agent. So you want to see what agent listed it and reach out to them. That's why we want to pull the extended listings. We want to be able to get that from an agent friend, or if you're an agent, you're going to be able to see who the listing agent is, and you reach out straight away to the listing agent. You don't want to reach out to your agent because now they're entitled to 3%. But let me get back to this. So when you're dealing with them, the agents on the extended listings, they're getting to the end of it. They're not being able to sell it and it's always because of price. The agent knows it's because of price, but maybe the seller is just unwilling or just unreasonable. So now you're going to walk the agent through a process and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, this is, what we do. We'd like to offer we're going to make two offers to this person. We're going to make a cash offer, and we're going to make, a creative financing offer. Okay. Well, what's a creative financing offer? Well, creative financing in this case would be a subject to offer. We would come in and take over the mortgage and pay the mortgage payments, but we would agree to their price in this particular scenario because we think we can make money on that property. Now, there's other things that kind of go into it, but in short, that's what it is, right? And so that agent will then go and prime the pump, if you will, with that person to see if they're open to that, if they're open and ready to do something like that. Now, if it's a 6-month listing and it's been on the market for 5 months and they haven't gotten any bites, they're going to be open to a lot of stuff, especially if they have to sell. For whatever reason, they have to sell, right? I had a buddy who did a deal, I think it was maybe a year ago. He did this deal where the person, it was an expensive house, like $1.2 million, I think it was, $1.2 million or $1.3 million, somewhere in there. But they bought it for $600,000, and it wasn't selling, and the agent couldn't sell the house. I think in this particular case, the guy wanted like 1.5, or I can't remember the specifics in terms of the numbers, but I know he wanted more than what the market was bearing at the time. So they made a deal, a terms deal. Said, look, all right, we'll come in, and here's how that deal structure went. They paid the $600,000 note, right? They paid that, and it was a high interest rate. The guy was paying, I think, $3,800 on that, or $4,000 on that one, somewhere in there. And they also structured interest payments, simple interest payments, on the equity above the $600,000, and they gave him like $50,000 down. His motivation wasn't that he needed to sell the house. He just didn't want it anymore. He was done. He didn't need the space. He didn't want all that house, and he wanted to go off. He wasn't hurting for money, and he was just ready to move on. So in this particular scenario, he got $50,000 to go. He's getting monthly payments that are coming in for the duration of their agreement, and the loan is being serviced. We use servicing companies for that, by the way, and a lot of people that are just starting out don't do that. I would tell you, go ahead and align yourself with a servicing company. We can have that conversation a little bit later, but align yourself with a servicing company because it makes it very easy for you to do deals that other people won't be able to do, simply because you have that intermediary in there. And that really is going to be, because of course there's an expense there. So you have to know what your exit strategy is going to be so that you can fully take advantage of it. You can pay for it, right? Okay, so extended listings, that's what you do there. Expired listings are going to come from the same place. You're going to call these people and you're going to say, hey, what's going on? Are you still willing to sell your house, right? Hopefully they haven't lost it. You just don't know the situation on the expired listings. It's expired, again, generally because of price. It's always because of price. Some people will say, well, it's not really the price, it's because it needs work. Well, that's price, right? They're asking for more money, too much money based on what the property is actually worth in its current condition, in the current market. It always comes down to money. It's always coming down to money. It doesn't matter if the house is in perfect condition and they want too much, or if it's falling apart and they want too much. We all heard those stories over the years. I mean, we deal with these people all the time. We deal with people that are so unrealistic, because they're looking at Zillow and they say, hey, this house sold for $260,000 around the corner. Yeah, but that's fully renovated. Let me show you what that looks like. And then I show them what their house looks like. And, it's not the same. But that's a whole nother conversation, So you have to know what you're dealing with as it relates to that. So, all right. Now, going back here, another thing that we really like is tired landlords. Oops, I didn't want to do that. We like tired landlords. Why do we like tired landlords? Well, we like tired landlords because we can do a lot of stuff with them, right? Sometimes they don't want to sell the property. Sometimes they do. Tired landlords are like, look, I'm tired of, especially coming out of COVID. They weren't getting any rent. It was a real problem for a lot of people. So that gave us an opportunity to come in and say, hey, here's what we'd like to do. here's what we can do. And by doing this, it gives them, maybe, depends on the terms, but it'll give them the cash flow that they're looking for, right? We dealt with one where we picked the property up for $140,000. We picked it up for $140,000. It needed about $20,000 worth of actual work, maybe 15 of actual work, clean up paint, changing locks. There were a couple broken windows, things like that. We turned it into an Airbnb. We partnered with someone else on this, and because we do a lot of partnership deals. So, and by the way, just to throw it out there, if you have deals that you'd like to partner with, reach out to me. We love to partner with people on deals, whether you're bringing the deal and you want to sell it, or you're bringing the deal and you're looking for a partner for one. It doesn't really matter. Let's have a conversation. But tired landlords are a great place because they're tired. They're sick and tired of it. They wanted the cash flow, but it's not really working the way they wanted it to work. It's just one thing or another. It's crazy business for them. So we'll go to them and we'll do things like, not just in subject to, but we'll do the subject twos with them, but we'll do long-term corporate leases with them as well. They're basically subject to deals, but we're presenting them in a manner that makes sense for them. And depending on how long they've had these properties, whatever we're paying them is solid. They're getting money every month towards their lifestyle, towards whatever it is they want to do. So tired landlords are a great place for us, for wholesale deals as well as subject to deals. So never get past that at all. Now, the next one that we really like is PPC, or pay per click. Pay per click. Now, these are paid ads that we run on Instagram and Facebook. Pretty much that's it. We're just starting in some other places. We do a little bit of Google, but it's pay per click. And we have ads that are running in the markets that we service, the markets that we work in, and we don't have to spend a ton of money in doing those. We made the commercial ourselves, edited up into 30, 45, and 60 second spots. And we put it out there and we just let it go, right? We just let it go. We actually have 3 commercials and we'll switch them up so that they don't get sick and tired of seeing, me all the time, So I got one of my partners, Steve, he's done one, and we've got another partner named Cody who's also done one, and we will switch those up, every 6-7 weeks or so that they just, they're not seeing the same thing, but they're seeing the same logo. They're seeing the same imaging, the branding aspect of it is happening. And so they can go in and pop in their information, and then we have one of our VAs reach right out to them. So, because when they're calling, if they're calling you, they're calling someone else. Okay. And if you're like, I'll get to them tomorrow or the next day, they are gone. Okay. They're on somebody else's hook. So you want to make sure that you're on top of that, and you stay on top of that by, following up, taking the calls. Now you might say, look, I don't have a website. I don't have anything like that. What do I need to do if I don't have anything like that? How is this going to work for me? Well, maybe you don't, but on Facebook and Instagram, they have forms. They're called Insta forms. And once that form is filled out, you can either log in and see that, or there's a service that you can get for little or nothing called Zapier, and it will zap you those messages right over to you. Right to your email, so instantaneously someone has filled out my form. You can look at the form and call them and say, hey, this is Jane Doe. I'm calling because you just filled out a form about selling your property. And you say whatever you want to say in your commercial, right? And listen, when I say you go and shoot a commercial, I'm not saying that you have to go out there and do this high, this big production. You don't have to do that. You see this? You can do this right here. If you've got a modern iPhone, you can do it right there, right? Or maybe you're an Android user. I'm not sure of the editing software that comes with that, but I know it exists. So you can sit there and edit up, shoot a video on your phone, right? On your phone. edit it up on your phone, upload it from your phone to Facebook, create the Insta form right there and make it happen, right? So pay per click. And what we do in those particular situations, depending on the city, we're spending and the time frame, we're spending anywhere between $20 and $50 per metropolitan area. In Atlanta, we'll go at about $30 a day, and we just let the commercials run. We'll bump it up to 50 sometimes. It depends on the time of the year and all that great stuff. But $20-$30 a day. Compare that to a direct mail campaign, blows it out of the water. And these are warm leads. These are people that are contacting you saying, I need help with my situation. And your messaging, if for anyone here that has taken my 5-day real estate marketing challenge, I talk a lot about the messaging. If you haven't taken it, hit the banner above, at the top of the group and take the 5-day marketing challenge. It's one video, one module, if you will, a day for 5 days, maybe 20 minutes of your time. But your messaging is vital. Who are you going after? We're talking about subject to. So we're going to be talking about people. Hey, have you been having a hard time selling your house? Is it listed? Did your listing expire? Call me. I can get you your price. It can be as simple as that, because we don't care how much equity is in the property as long as we know we can, cash flow that property based on a number of exit strategies. That's all we really care about. And that's all you should care about. Okay. So getting back to what we're talking about here. Okay. So we talked about pay per click a little bit. That's where you're going to find them. We get them there. No equity deals. We just talked about that. Door knocking and wholesalers. Why would you ever want to deal with wholesalers, and why would you even consider door knocking? Right? Wholesalers are great. They're always out there. There are wholesalers that have deals they haven't been able to sell. There are wholesalers that make bad deals, right? And they haven't been able to sell them because, they're looking at wholesaling this property in a very specific manner, in a wholesale formula, but they're pushing up values. They're looking at things that just don't make sense. They're comparing the property to properties that are bigger, any number of reasons they have missed the mark. And they're telling these people, the sellers, hey, we can get you this, we can get you this, we can get you this. Well, you talk to them, and maybe you can't get them a cash offer, but you start the dialogue. You have wholesalers bring you deals they can't sell. Because it happens all the time. Wholesalers are constantly losing deals because they negotiated a bad deal. How do I know this? It's more than me just being in the market for 20 years, but I've told you time and time again, my first 2.5 years in this business, I made no money. I didn't make any money to live. I made a little money here and there, but I was making those bad deals because I was looking at doing deals in one way and one way only, and that was a wholesale way. Back then we had a 65% method, 65% of the ARV minus the rent. It's the same formula, but the numbers are now 70 and 75%, right? But back then it was 65% ARV minus renovation minus what you want to make, right? So if the house was worth $200,000, 65% of that is $130,000. If the renovations were $40,000, you're going to take that off the 130. That's 90. If you want to make 10, you got to take that off of the 90. Now it's 80. Now your MAO, your maximum allowable offer, is now $80,000. But you don't start there. You start at maybe 65 or 70. And that was the only way I was looking at doing deals. And people would be like, I can't take $65,000 for my house. I can't do that. I can't take 75 for it. I can get more than that right now. Heard it all the time. But that was the only thing I knew until I learned this strategy. Once I learned this, we got way more deals, because now we can do deals with people that, as a wholesaler, cannot be done. It opened me up into a whole new world of buyers my first house that I moved my family into was a subject to deal. My very first house was a subject to our first house. We went from an apartment to a house. And I tell you, it was just, it was an eye-opening experience. It changed the way I looked at this business. It just changed the way. And I still needed cash, right? Because cash flow is good, but when you're starting, you need cash. You need money, right? Because you got bills, You got people to take care of. You got things to do. You might be behind. You need to catch up on stuff. You need cash. You need to hit $5, $7, $10,000. You need that. You need it right now. Well, with these deals, when I learned how to do that, when you're wholesaling subject to deals, you go in and you negotiate the deal. You do all the stuff that we're just talking about. This is one of your exit strategies. You do all the stuff that we're sitting here talking about. You go out, you negotiate the deal, you get it done, and then you sell it for $5, $7, or $10,000, whatever, it depends on the deal, to another investor that wants to do a lease option, a subject to, but you've done all the work. You've done all the negotiating. You found the deal, you negotiated the deal, paperwork is done, your contract says it's fully assignable, now you assign it to this person for X number of dollars. They take it over, they pay you the $7,000, $10,000, $5,000, whatever it is, and you're gone. And they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do, fix it up, turn it into an Airbnb, rent it out, whatever their exit strategy is. It's totally up to them at that point. You have now made your money. Okay, so wholesalers are a great place, and they're everywhere. Just reach out to them. Get involved in meetup groups. You see people all the time that have signs on the road. We buy houses, or whatever the gimmick is. Call them and say, hey, listen, do you have any deals that you've had on the books for a while? You're having a difficult time getting rid of them. Develop the relationships. They might not have it today, but they might have it next month. They might have it next week. So you got to do that. Call listing agents. I want to go back to that. A lot of investors will tell you not to do that. I'm telling you to do it because you can negotiate even their 3%. And if you're an agent and you're watching this right now, please forgive me. I'm just being honest. If you've had a hard time, if you've got a 6-month listing and this property is about to, the listing is about to expire and that seller is mad at you, and maybe we're your last choice. Maybe we're your last option. But you've brought it up to them, to this person, because they really want to sell. And you've brought it up to this person. I'm bringing you a deal that would be, or closing on a deal that would be otherwise dead. My conversation with you is not going to be a 3% commission. My conversation is going to be with you a fee, right? Going back to the same $300,000 deal that we were talking about. You're looking at that 3%, $9,000. You're looking at that 3% and you're saying, okay, I got somebody that's going to be able to take it over, and they're going to make sure that I get paid, which we will. And you guys got to know that you have to make sure that people get paid. You can't go in there and just take it for nothing. It doesn't have to be your money, but it's going to be somebody's money. We'll have another conversation about that. But this is what it is. This is real. And in order for you to make sure that you're doing this, you have to have this conversation with them and say to them, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, I can't pay you 3% on this, as a commission, because, I got to come in here. We got to be creative. It's going to cost us a ton of money to get it done. If we don't get it done in the next couple of weeks, your listing is going to expire. It's done. And we can't make them a cash offer. They want too much money. But we can offer them terms and give them their price in a creative financing scenario. Instead of 9,000, would you take, instead of 3%, would you take 1.5% before this deal expires? Because it's about to expire. And it's a bird in the hand beats 2 in the bush for them. So I might negotiate that deal down to $3,000 or $4,500. It's a lot better than the 9,000 that we might have had to come up with. And for the agent, it's better than waiting another 30 days or 2 weeks and losing that commission, any money on that deal altogether. And a lot of times you got to realize agents actually have money. They have time and money sometimes put up into these properties. Those beautiful pictures that are being taken on these properties, the homeowner's not taking those. It's the agent that goes out and gets the photographer and pays them God knows how much money to come over and take those pictures. That's maybe $600, $700 right there. But it depends on the house. The bigger the house, the more expensive it's going to be. But I know that it's at least $500 or $600. They're spending that money. They've got time, gas money going back and forth. The time that they negotiated doing this deal with the person. All that accounts for something. And I think you'd be foolish to discount that agent. You'd be foolish to discount that agent. You'd be foolish to try to wait 2 weeks for them to go away and you can come in and get. You'd be foolish to lose an ally for the future. You'd be foolish as an investor to do that. Absolutely foolish. But there's nothing wrong with you negotiating that 3%. But don't cut them out. Don't do it. So deal with your wholesalers. And then there is door knocking. Now this is something that a person is going to do when they have time. And it is effective. I have a gentleman that I've been working with for years. One of the very first people, let's see, now it's been 6 years, almost 6 years now, that he and I have been working together since 16. Yes. So 6 years we've been working together. And he was from New York. So we walked him through his first deal in New York. He didn't want to live in New York anymore. He wanted to get out of New York, but he needed money. It took him 7 months to do his first deal. Now he was in the city. He was in New York with no money. And he's door knocking, going from brownstone to brownstone in Brooklyn, because that's where he lived. And it's just a matter of someone liking him more than they like the other person. And he got the property under contract and immediately sold it to someone else that has probably been hounding those people down as well. Sold it to someone else for $100,000. $100,000 assignment fee. Now we are talking about, $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million places. So they're not cheap. They're not cheap at all, right? So even 6 years ago in parts of Brooklyn, these places were $1.5 million, $2 million. So he got $100,000 and he took that $100,000, came down here to Atlanta, and he's been down here ever since. And he door knocks. That's all he does. He doesn't do any direct mail. He doesn't do any cold calling. He does door knocking. And then he follows up. He door knocks. And he does 5, maybe 6 deals a month. We sell a lot of his deals for him. So he's doing a ton of deals just from door knocking but that's all he does. And he's gotten very, very good at it. I know a lot of people don't want to do it. That's the last thing they want to do. They don't want to spend all the time and energy that it takes to go out into an area and canvass it for the next 2 weeks and then cultivate that list. And there's a trick to the trade, and we can have a conversation about what you can do when you're door knocking and what kind of messaging needs to be on your paperwork or your flyer or your bandit signs that you're going to canvass that particular area with as well. What is your message? Because it's your message that's going to get through, not just you knocking on the door, because, hey, you don't know if that person is renting that house. And if they are, you got to ask them to give you the homeowner's information. Then you got to get on the phone. Okay. So door knocking is a great way to get that done as well. And a lot of people are always overlooking the door knocking thing. And it is tough, but hey, you got it. I think if you got time, if you got a bunch of time, generally you don't have a bunch of money. So utilize that time to go get yourself some money, but stay away from this. Stay away from for sale by owners. Why would I say stay away from for sale by owners? Hold on, let me get this. Michael has a question here. Mr. Gonzalez, do you do commercial properties as well? Absolutely, we do commercial properties. It can be multifamily, it can be retail space, it could be mixed use space, it could be land, it can be warehouses, it could be whatever. It could be a store. It could be a business. I mean, it could be all kind of things. It can be all kind of things, man. So yes, we do commercial properties as well, commercial land, whatever. You do it all the time. These are things, and if I'm being honest, in the commercial space, in New York, for instance, I mean, and it happens in a lot of other places, but it is Manhattan in particular utilizes this strategy, right? They don't call it subject to their long-term 99-year leases, right? They're master leases is what they're called. But you can leverage master leases. You can get loans against them in commercial space. Michael, I can go on and on about that, on and on about that. But, you guys know the Empire State Building, when it was purchased last, it was purchased on a 114-year master lease. Go and look it up. Donald Trump bought most of his properties on 99-year leases. The families that own that real estate have no intention on ever really selling. So that's a whole nother conversation. These are families that came over on the Mayflower. I mean, they've owned real estate for a long time. Okay, these descendants will never sell that real estate. Why would you sell anything when you have real estate on a place called Billionaires Row? So, yeah, you're welcome, sir. You're welcome. You're welcome. Paul, what did you say here? Paul says, okay, all right, I'll get to that. Okay. I do have an elderly lady who has a mobile home she wants to get out of. All right, so mobile homes are going to be a little bit different, right? Because depends on the state. Like in Nevada, I know you're in California, but in Nevada, there are rules and licenses that you need to get. So I hate to say it this way, but you have to know how to, without spending an enormous amount of money to get those licenses, you have to know how to finagle your way through them legally. Let me just say it that way. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm giving you a way to, kind of circumvent the law. That's not what I'm doing. You have to understand legally how to get around those things. Now, in California, I am not 100% sure. We'd have to check on that, but I don't think that you're going to need all of those things out there in California. I can have this answer for you by the morning, though. The actual solid answer. I have a friend out there in San Diego who invests in mobile home parks and started off in individual mobile homes. So, and I think we're talking about individual mobile homes. So with the home, I mean, you can do it on the home, but then there is the land. The land is generally leased, rented land, right? So if you have the mobile home, if she doesn't own the land that's underneath it, you have to kind of figure that part of it out as well. Okay. So, and then they have all kind of rules and regulations inside there. You just have to be careful and look at what they can do. And it's not a homeowners association, it's something else, but it's just a matter of having a conversation. That's all. But yes, you can make money there. She's still paying on it. Yeah, you can absolutely make money there, man. We'll just look at it. When you have an opportunity, I'll get you the actual information by tomorrow. But send me the deal. Let me help you analyze it, and we'll go from there. See if we can put that deal together for you. But stay away from for sale by owners. I want to say that again. I want to get back to that and tell you why that's so important, because so many people will say, go there, forsalebyowner.com, or go to Zillow because they're all there. That is true. Why are they there? Why most people choose to do subject twos? Well, they're doing the subject twos. Not subject twos, for sale by owners, because they don't want to pay an agent. They don't want to pay an expert to sell their home for them. They think it's pointless, right? Especially when the market is great like it's been. It's pointless. Like, why would I give away 6% plus? And when I say plus, a buyer wants, seller contributions to closing. That can be 2%, sometimes 3%. I'd say anywhere between 1 and 3, but 2 is a good place to go. Sometimes they want them to pay for other fees. Sometimes they want them to pay for the inspection, right? But let's just call it 8%. It's going to cost them 8%. If they've got $1 million house, which depending on where you are in California, it's pretty much everywhere. But, just to keep the math simple, let's say it's a $500,000 house. 8% of that is a lot of money. Okay, it's $40,000. And so they say, well, that's $40,000 is almost 10% of what we're getting for the house. I don't want to do that. We could sell it for ourselves. The market's hot. We'll just do it that way. And they never get them sold. They never get them sold. Why don't they get them sold? Because they're probably asking too much. They're probably unwilling to do any seller contributions. They're probably in such a situation mentally where they're pinching dollars and pinching pennies, and losing dollars. And so it's been for sale forever. They really don't have any pain, right? They don't have any motivation to really sell it. And they're trying to get as much out of it as they possibly can. Now, one might argue, hey, well, as the market comes down, these people might be a little more open. Yeah, maybe. But from my experience, it's just an area that I would prefer to stay away from. And I kind of caution people to stay away from them as well, because there's really, really no, you're gonna spend a lot of time doing that. I mean, you're gonna spend a ton of time doing that, okay? A lot of time. So I want to get back into, what I think is an easy way, an easy point of entry for a lot of you to get involved with subject twos or find the deals. Finding the deals, is what to say to agents. What are you going to say to an agent? Because I know we've talked a little bit about that, but you have to know what to say to an agent when you call them. Listen, Robert G. Allen, got famous from doing this particular strategy. Robert G. Allen got famous for getting a roll of quarters and calling real estate agents in the phone book, right? And I want to make sure that I stress to you, when you're talking to real estate agents, what you want to do is you want to talk to the listing agent. So you have to call agents and talk to them. Or if you have a friend that is a real estate agent, you can ask them to give you listings with the criteria that you need, because that listing is going to have the agent's information on it. And so if they give you those listings, you can go ahead and take that and go yourself and call those listing agents for those properties that look like they might be in a bad situation. But when you're talking to them, let me just go back here. So the first one is explain who you are and what you do. So what does that look like? What are you explaining? Yeah, my name is Jason Myles, and I work with realtors and wholesalers and real estate investors alike. But we work together to help people that are in, distressed situations. Maybe, they need to sell their house, and we do cash offers, but we also do creative financing opportunities. What cash offers are, but what are creative financing opportunities? Creative financing opportunities, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, are for people that can't sell their property for one reason or another. Maybe they don't have a lot of equity. Maybe they're going into pre-foreclosure, or they're going into foreclosure and they're running out of time. And maybe you represent some of those people and you're not getting the traction that you need in the time that you need. We come in with creative financing solutions to save that person. Basically, we take over the loan and we catch it up if it's behind, which helps their credit rating and all these great things. So we work with people in any given situation. If they need, there's no equity, that's fine. Maybe they're asking for a certain price simply because they have to, for whatever reason. They can't go below a certain number. But if they're willing to do this, we can save the situation and go from there. And then they're going to have a ton of questions for you, and you're going to have to be able to rattle the answers off, right? But we'll go through a lot of what that looks like over time. But you have to explain who you are and what it is you do. And when you're talking to them and you tell them, look, I'm looking at a listing here that you've had for the last 93 days. Can you tell me a little bit about the property? Can you tell me a little bit about what the people are going through? Can you tell me a little bit about the pricing? And then let them talk. Because you don't want to over talk. You want to listen to what people have to say. People like it when you listen. You don't want to be the biggest brain in the room. Okay? You want to be able to listen to them, because if you spend the time listening to them, they'll tell you what the situation is. You just have to know the right questions to answer, and that's why we're here. Okay? So in the going back there, that's the first thing you do, and you're going to ask them again if they represent any sellers who may entertain a creative financing structure. Make sure you get their listings, right? So the agent, you want that agent's listing. I just want to reiterate that. And that's what that means when they say make sure you get their listing. It's their listings. You might be like, we have a network of probably 20 or so agents that we talk to on a regular basis, right? There are some satellite agents we work with, but on a regular basis, it's probably 20 agents that have listed properties that'll reach out and say, hey, this is the situation. Hey, this is the situation. Or we have one of our agents in our office has a situation that they need help getting out of. Do you mind having a conversation with them? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And the referral that we give them is always, we give a $500 referral fee, right? And for a lot of agents, depends on the agent, that's nothing. But, they're giving you business. You got to give them something. And so that's what we do, right? That's what we do here. So, all right. So you're asking for their listings, Also, ask them for listings that have been on the market for more than 60 days, right? So that number can shift from time to time. You'll find a lot of motivation there. You'll find a lot of motivated people there. After 60, 70 days on market, they're anxious. They've probably already dropped the price once or twice, and there's a reason that property is not selling. If it's been on the market 60, 70, 90 days, there's a reason it's not selling, and it's always, again, because of price. When you walk in there, they're going to say, well, the floor is messed up. There's a foundation problem on the roof. Yeah, okay, fine. There are some physical things that are needed, but again, the price is too high based on what's needed. They're asking too much money for the house. It's always price. So you go in and you assess it. We'll go in that particular situation and say, listen, we'd love to give you a cash offer on this property. We know you're asking $300,000, but for us to buy this house and fix all the things that are wrong with it, I understand that there were previous home inspections and this and that are wrong or need to be repaired. I'm seeing that for myself. But once I fix these things, it's going to also require me to come in and do these other things. I'm going to have to put appliances in here. All this matters. So 300,000 isn't a realistic number. For us, that number is going to have to be, closer to, maybe 180. I'm exaggerating here if they're asking for 300,000, but, but that could be the case. You just never know. Maybe those renovations are $20,000 to $30,000. That's enough for people to walk away. If that's the case and we're an investor if we're buying it from an investor wholesale perspective, again, we're going to look at that at 70%, right? 70% of 300,000 is 210,000 minus renovation costs, right? That's 190,000. So that's close to the 180. And I'll tell them that this is the cash offer we can give you, but we can get a little bit closer to that 300,000 if we can do some creative financing. I can get you the money that you can be happy with. If you can't take the cash offer, I can get you the money that you can be happy with, provided we can work out the terms. And that's the conversation, right? Once they've been on the market for 60 days or more and they've reduced the price a time or two, they're going to want to do a little something different. They're going to want to do something different, okay? Now, once you have an offer ready to go, start negotiating with the agent on their 3% commission. This is what we talked about before. Get them to take a fee instead of the commission, as they weren't, excuse my bad spelling there, as they weren't going to get the deal sold in the first place, right? They were losing the deal. Okay? So agents, if we have any agents listening here, chime in and tell me how you feel about that. I know you don't like it. You want your 3%. You've been hanging in there for 5 months, almost 6 months, but you're at the door now. And isn't it better to get something than nothing, right? Isn't it better to satisfy that seller so that they can recommend you, that you brought them something that worked for them? I think it works. I think it plays well. I think it plays well for you. I think it plays well for me. I think it plays well for the seller. I think all of that is important. I think all of that is what's going to help you win in this particular scenario. It's not even that I think it. I know it. I know it's going to help you win, without a doubt, right? So I know we're getting close to our hour and a half. Let me get to the last one here. Is how to negotiate your subject to, right? So when you're having these conversations, one of the most important things I want to tell you is you want to be on the phone with. Let me stress this. You got to look at me. You have to be on the phone negotiating with the seller. You cannot rely on the agent to do it. You're going to know more, generally speaking, than the agent. Agents don't do subject to deals. And the ones that do are few and far between. Okay? You gotta love them. You gotta appreciate and respect the ones that do. But until you find them, even when you do find them, because it gives you leverage when you're on the phone with them, and we'll kind of go over that in a little while. Well, maybe another time, because I don't want to keep you forever. But it gives you leverage when you're on the phone with them, because ultimately you're the person. You're the one. You're the one that they're going to do the deal with, right? You're the one negotiating, even if you're assigning it to someone else. You're the one. You are the authority. You. They're signing the agreement with you, no one else. Right? So, knowing that to be the case, you've got to make sure that you put yourself in that situation. Now, when you're negotiating with these agents, when you're having the negotiations with the sellers, be courteous, introduce yourself, get as much information about the property and the seller as possible, including their needs, expectations, and pain points. What does that mean, Mr. Myles? What does that mean? Okay. Well, be courteous. Hey, is this Sam? Hey, Sam, I was speaking to your agent, Jillian, and she told me that you would be willing to entertain, this deal, but bring me up to speed, because I don't have all the notes and of all the conversations that you've already had. Bring me up to speed as to what you guys have talked about, so that I can just kind of dive into it. And they're going to tell you about the conversations they had with the agent. They're going to tell you about any offers they had. They're going to tell you about, just everything going on with the property. They're going to talk to you. Okay. They're going to talk to you. And when you need to jump in there and ask something, you can. Hey, okay, so great. Jillian told you about such and such. Can you tell me a little bit more about the property? Because I haven't seen it yet, and I've only seen a couple pictures. I mean, what's it like? Does it leak anywhere? How's the roof? What are the windows like? Is there a basement? Crawl space? Tell me about the imperfections. And you say it nicely like that. Tell me about the imperfections, because it's not a matter of how bad is the house. Tell me about the imperfections. Okay, Paul has a question. I know you sent this information over on this. Do we have a packet which goes over these questions? Yeah. So, the packet is the role play, right? Because as I said earlier, I can write a script, and I've got some scripts, but the thing is, every situation is different. It's almost impossible for me to, I have the scripts and I can send them over, and I will send them over, but I wanted you to have what it is you need to do, because the role playing is going to be the better part. That's why we do those weekly group sessions and have these meetings and so on and so forth, because it's only through that action that it really is going to make sense to you. It's getting on the phone with people and experiencing these different scenarios, these different situations. It's only through that you're really going to start feeling it. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's always different. It's always different. It's always different. Okay? So it's just tough. But when you get on the phone, these are the kind of things you say. And when there's someone that's in front of you, excuse me, and when I say in front of you, like if you're dealing with an agent or something like that, or if you got it from a wholesaler, or you've got your cold callers doing their thing, when you've got someone in front of you, it's really easy to come back in and because they're going to introduce you. So it's like a warm introduction, which makes things really, really easy. And then you just go in, like I said, hey, Sam, hey, this is Jason Myles. I know you spoke with Julian or whatever, Julia, your agent. And so it's very nice to meet you. How's everything going? All the niceties. So, okay, listen, I don't have all the notes in front of me because I know you guys have had a lot of conversations about this. Can you bring me up to speed about the things that you've spoken about? By doing that, by laying it back into their hands, you can see where they are mentally. It's all about sizing people up. You're selling, you have to know what their pain points are, what their needs are. What are they expecting out of this situation? And you have to be able to offer these opportunities to them so that they can move forward. Okay. So that's the first thing right there. And the next, is repeat points of what they say so that they know that they're being heard. So again, this is, I hate to call it a sales tactic, but it's just being a human, right? So when they say something and you say, oh, okay, all right, so you're married. They just told you they were married. Oh, okay, well, do we need to get your wife, on the line? Maybe this isn't the last call that we have, but, let's get over, let's talk about some things. Oh, okay, yeah, you raised your family in this. Now, they told you this and you're just repeating it and repeating it. But they know they're being heard. They know that you're hearing them, and you're doing that, and you're jotting down over here on your notepad what's going on in their life. Why are you selling? You downsizing? Your job move? Just sick and tired of the house? It's just time to do something else? What is their motivation? And then, you start talking about their expectation. It goes right into it, right? And so by repeating those things as they're saying them, not cutting them off, just, in the pause, be like, oh, okay, that's great. Okay, so you're saying, okay, so what I heard was, by just doing that, that's letting them know that they've been heard, And then, so we'll get back, and then you're going to go on to let them know that you buy as is. You'll be able to save them thousands of dollars, even if it's currently listed, right? So if the house needs work, if the house is currently listed, in their mind, if it's listed, they've already agreed to pay upwards of 8%, right? Because they know they're going to have to pay 3% to this agent, 3% to that agent, and maybe another 2% in seller contributions to closing. They've already agreed to that. So by them having this conversation with you, you have saved them at least 6%. You're getting rid of one of the agents. You don't need any seller contributions, and you're going to negotiate. Well, you're really actually saving them the whole 8% because you're letting them know we've negotiated with your agent and we're going to pay them so you don't have to. That's leverage for you. You're offering value before you've even gotten into what you're going to offer them for price. I mean, how magical is that? But that's real. That's what it is you do. That's what you're going to be doing. You're saving them money so it can turn into profit on your side of the equation. It's as simple as that, right? So that's what you're going to let them know. You're going to ask them, what their cash as is number is. What do they need right now? And explain that you'll pay all closing costs, no inspections, and that you can close quick, right? So those things, again, are extremely important, right? What is it that you have to walk away with on this deal? What is a number that, like your bottom number, that you can live with? Now, I get asked that question all the time, and I have the same answer. I said, listen, I can't negotiate with myself, but I'm coming from a different place, right? We're talking to people that are, generally speaking, needing to sell. They need to move on. So that's not a question. They're not going to come back with that kind of a response. Their response is going to be more like, they're going to think about it for a second, and again, if they're asking for 300, they might say, look, I can't take any less than 275. I can't. I know the house needs a few things, and I know that you're going to get it there, but I can't sell it for less than 275. And then my question to them would be this. Okay, I understand that. Now, in that 275, from that 275, are you still paying your agents? Are you still paying that 8%? Because sometimes they, that's just in their mind. They're in their mind. They're like, okay, it's going to cost me $25,000 to sell this. And so their number really may be 250. And so once you figured that out, again, you're getting more negotiating power. You're asking for information. And what are you doing while they're telling you this? You're writing it down. Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Smith. Mm-hmm. 25,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. But that's what you're doing. You're gathering information to make the best deal possible. Okay, that's what you're doing. All right. So, and then the last one here is use the as-is price as a takeaway, meaning you can pay them more money using creative financing. They get a higher price. And that's the scenario that I spoke about just a little while ago. The scenario meaning, okay, I know you want 300, but based on the way we have things set up, I can only offer you 190 or 180. But I can probably pay you 250, 270 if we can do terms. Okay? But when you use the as-is price, when you hit them with that and they're like, oh, no, I can't do that. There's no way I can't do that. Can't do that at all. But when you hit them with the as-is price, they come back and they say, all right, that 250 or whatever number is closer to where we need to be. I really like to be there. What does that look like? And now you start the education process with them as it relates to how they can actually make money, or how you're going to pay them, I should say, on this subject to strategy, how it's going to play out for them based on their needs, right? And remember, there will be some educating of the seller. You have to know that. So as you learn more, you'll do more. And until then, you've got someone like me here that's willing to get on the phone with you and the agent and or seller and put this thing together. You have to build trust. And it may not just be in one phone call. I want to make sure that you understand that as well. This could be a series of telephone calls. It could be, 2, 3, 4, 5 calls before you get a yes or a no. It could be months of negotiation, right? You may have talked to them at a time where they just haven't determined exactly what it is they're going to do or how they're going to do it yet, right? So they may need to still come down from space a little bit. You just never know. But you always want to be a constant. You always want to be there. You always want to follow up. We follow up. If we're having a hot conversation right now, if I talk to you today, I'm going to reach out to you Wednesday. Hey, how's everything going? I just wanted to reach back out now. But I'm going to try to set that time up while we're on the phone today. And if they said they're going to call me back Tuesday or Wednesday, I might not press them on Wednesday, but I will call them Thursday because I didn't get the call on Wednesday. And I'm going to have that conversation, and we'll just keep that going. And then once they say to me, if they say something like, well, we're just going to see what's going on in the market right now, I'll follow up with them in a week or maybe 2 weeks and see where they are. If they have an agent and I'm in communication with that agent, that's who I'll be following up with. But it's important for us to consistently follow up and make these calls and make these offers and be out there. And it all starts by you getting on the telephone. Getting on the phone with agents, calling up your friends, your family members that might be real estate agents in the state that you're in, getting them to give you the lists of what it is you're doing. Ask them what listings do you have, see if you can offer something to them as well. And you just start to build rapport with all these people. That's how this goes. This is how you start. Now, I know we've gone a little bit over, but there's a lot to unbox when you're talking about subject twos. I mean, even though we've just spent an hour together and I've given you everything, I tried to condense this into an hour and a half, the best way that I could possibly do it, right? But if you have questions, I want you to ask them, and ask them now, ask them later. I'm going to be following up with this. Again, this will be here for a couple of days, so you'll be able to rewatch it or share it with people that are in the group and tell them to rewatch it. If you want to have some of the training in the, let's make this happen. You know this, brother. In the description, I've got, a link in there for our group training. You can take it. You don't have to take it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to also put it in the comment sections here. It's $98 a month, $98 down, $98 a month. We do a live call every single week. You're in the Facebook group. You're dealing with us there. You're going to have access to the entirety of my digital education portfolio and the community, not just the Facebook community, but the community there. And you get all those calls recorded. But if that's something you're interested in, it's there. Check it out. It's totally up to you, right? It's in the description as well as the comment section. So it's there. And I'm here for you guys. I appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day, of their Sunday, of their rest day before they get into whatever tomorrow's going to be, because we all got it. I really appreciate you. I hope that this was of value. I'm only wanting to help. If you have questions, whether you're in the training or not, it doesn't matter. Please, is it possible to connect with you for a one-on-one? Yes, sir. Mike, I will reach out to you in the DMs, and we'll just, because I think I have it closed over here. I'll send you over a Calendly link, and we can have a conversation from there. Mike asked, yeah, there it is. Yeah, Paul's got it. Yeah, Mike, I will absolutely get that over to you. When I get off of this, I'll message you that right away so that you can take advantage of it. Let me see if I can get it. Let me see if I can just pull it up. Bear with me for just one moment. And I can just put it in, put the link right here and get you situated. Boom. All right, man, you got it now. So, and that's where we are, guys. That's where we are, and that's what we do. Again, I want to thank you all for spending time here. I look forward for the opportunity to work with you. And again, you're in the group, you're in here. So, let's make it happen. Let's get you to success. I'm telling you, with the market that we're in and where we're going, this is I don't care where you are. And if you need help doing these deals, you need a partner doing these deals. If you want to partner up on deals, right? You may have cash and you want to partner up. You may want to go out there and find the deals and you want to partner up because you don't have cash. Doesn't really matter to me. Let's connect. Let's link. Let me teach you how to do this in any way, shape, or form that you want to do it, because there's so many different things that we can do. My man Paul, he's out there in California. He's been on this whole thing, and listen, Paul's we're gonna have a good time, Paul. I don't want to say too much more, but I can tell you it's gonna be fun working with you. And hey, let's go get it, guys. This is your man Myles, and I really do appreciate you. I don't know what to say. Thank you for taking the time out of this day to spend this with me. I hope you got some value, and I look forward to working with you again in the near future. Peace. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great, great Sunday evening.